Hello, and welcome to Managing Work-Life Balance, our Graduate Student Success webinar presented by the School of Professional Studies at Elmhurst College. I'm Tim Panfill, Director of Enrollment Management and Adjunct Faculty Member in the Department of Business and the Elmhurst Learning and Success Academy. I'm glad that you're able to join me today to learn about establishing a work-life balance while going to graduate school. There's two questions that most prospective graduate students ask, or perhaps should ask, prior to starting a graduate program. The first is, do I have time to go to graduate school? And the second question is, how do I add school to my already crazy, hectic, or busy life? We hope to address both of these questions in the balance of the webinar. But first, as an adjunct faculty member, I love to give pop quizzes, so it's pop quiz time. But don't worry, this will be a very, very short one-question quiz. So 100 successful Elmhurst College graduate students were surveyed. They were asked this question: what is the most difficult aspect of graduate school? The top four answers are on the board, and I'd ask that you select the correct answer. So, is it A, the level of the material? Or is the most difficult aspect of graduate school B, the amount of time spent in class? Or perhaps it's C, your ability to manage your time while going to graduate school? Or finally, is it D, the amount of homework? Okay, select your choice by clicking on the correct answer. Yes, if you haven't figured it out, and perhaps the title of this workshop gave it away, the correct answer really is C, managing my time. First of all, the level of material in graduate school, while more advanced than undergraduate level, is probably not going to be what I would call rocket science. Plus, a couple of benefits to the material in graduate school. It's going to be pretty much 100% focused on the subject matter that you're going to be studying, meaning no general education classes. Second, or B, the amount of time spent in class. Well, that's perhaps one of the easier aspects of going back to graduate school. In most of our programs, the classes will meet one evening per week, and each class will meet for approximately 2 hours. Therefore, students are on campus generally 4 hours per week. Now, this will vary based upon the actual program that you're enrolling in. Most of our programs are part-time evening, but we do have a couple of full-time daytime programs. And D, the amount of homework. Yes, the level and amount of homework in graduate school is above and beyond probably what you experienced during your college days. But on average, and of course this is just an average, you should be prepared to spend at least 2 hours outside of your class time for every 1 hour that you're in class. Therefore, if you're in class 4 hours per week, plan on an average of at least 8 hours per week of homework time. And that will vary. Probably a good average if you're having to just read a few chapters in your textbook and prepare some questions for discussion. That number will increase, obviously, whenever you have a project that is due, whether it be a group or individual project, a paper, a presentation that you might be preparing for, or an exam. So C, managing my time, I think, really is the most difficult aspect of going back to graduate school. I completed a 3-year part-time MBA program while getting married and starting a family. And if I can do it, you can do it. Here's my personal experience. My honey-do list did grow exponentially while I was in graduate school. And I figured I would just defer all those things that I had to do until after I got out of school. When I graduated with my MBA and started tackling my honey-do list, I found myself becoming more of a couch potato. So the moral of the story is I became a very efficient manager of my time, and I was able to successfully juggle work, going to school, and my family. So does anyone want to take a guess what all these numbers represent? No, they're not tonight's winning lottery numbers. The 60 actually represents the number of minutes in an hour. The 24, the number of hours in a day. The 7, obviously 7 days in a week. And of course, there are 52 weeks in a year. So, bottom line is, we all have the same amount of time. We can't stop time. We can't create more time. But we can learn some tools and techniques to make better use of the very limited time each and every one of us has. The bottom line, achieving work-life balance is simply a matter of time management, organization, and planning. So the first step in achieving balance is learning to take control of your time. Here's a few tips and techniques to employ to take better control of your time. Have you ever gotten through a day at work, and as you're leaving the building or driving home, you think back to yourself and ask, where did the day go? What did I do for the 8, 9, 10 hours that I was at work? So you need to track your time for 1 week. Just do it. And be honest with yourself. Create a grid, perhaps using Excel. Track your time Monday through Sunday during each one of your waking hours, and take a look at where your time is actually being spent. And I'll guess that some of that time is being spent on what we would call time wasters. So the second technique is to identify and eliminate time wasters. I'm going to talk about 3 of the most common time wasters. The first of which is the concept of multitasking. It was studied in the 90s as a way to increase one's productivity. However, recent research shows that it's actually ineffective. Multitasking just doesn't work. The research indicated that you actually spend more time in total completing the tasks than if you did them individually. And secondly, people made more mistakes when they were multitasking versus when they were tackling each task individually. So the bottom line is to focus on one thing at a time. Complete that and then move on to your next task. A second time waster is your failure to delegate. And I'm not just talking about delegating at work. When you go back to school, you need to also delegate things at home. Some things must fall off your to-do list, whether it's shopping, doing the dishes, taking out the garbage, or shuttling the kids from soccer or ballet practice. In terms of delegating at work, you need to avoid the how great thou art syndrome. You've not heard of the how great thou art syndrome? Well, it goes like this. I'm the only one who could ever do X, Y, and Z because I've always done it and nobody could ever do it to the level that I do it. Well, that's probably a bunch of baloney, although I'll probably agree that there are a few things in your responsibilities list that you are probably the best person with which to accomplish those responsibilities. But you need to delegate some of the less important things. Get them off your plate. You need to trust your subordinates. You need to train them on these new tasks. You need to check in with them and set goals for them and time frames for them in which to complete those goals. Just remember that delegating does not equal dumping. And finally, procrastinating. Some people refer to me as the king of procrastination. I honestly will wait till the last minute, the 11th hour, right before the project is due or the task needs to be completed, to go ahead and do that. So let me refer you to 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey and the acronym FTF. FTF, according to Covey, stands for First Things First. You need to tackle the most important things on your to-do list first and foremost. Get them out of the way. Because most of us like to tackle the things we like to do, or the things that are easiest for us to do first. That's wrong. Remember FTF, first things first. Next, tackle the things that are most difficult or the task that you least like doing. For me, it's expense reports. I don't know about you, but I just have to really mentally prepare and set aside time to tackle those expense reports if I'm to get them in on time. So the next step in achieving work-life balance is to get organized and to become an expert at planning. Here's a few tips and techniques to help you become better organized and a better planner. First, work smarter, not harder. Now, most people don't plan to fail, they just fail to plan. And unfortunately, that's too often the case. And working harder, smarter, but not harder seems very easy to do. But it's actually a very difficult thing to accomplish. First tip that I'll share with you is to not hold a meeting without an agenda. Establish firm start and end times for the meeting and close the meeting on time by recapping what you talked about and reviewing next steps, action items, responsibilities of members at that meeting, or what I like to call homework assignments. And then immediately try to set up a follow-up meeting if that needs to happen. Another technique that I employ is to set blocks of time each day during which to respond to email and return phone calls. Some of us get caught up in those constant email exchanges and returning of phone calls where you leave a voicemail message, then they call you back while you're making another call and they leave you a voicemail message. What I would suggest is that you set specific blocks of time throughout the day in which to just do nothing but respond to emails and return phone calls. I'll set all types of tasks in my Outlook calendar, whether it's things to do, projects, reminders, and it's very rare that my Outlook calendar isn't full every day of the week. The second tool is to what I call be in the moment, or to be present, to focus on one thing at a time. I'll give you an example. I have an open door policy. So when my door is open, my employees feel free to stop in to talk to me, particularly if they have questions, an issue, or what have you. However, I can remember one case just a few years ago where one of my employees came in with a significant issue and was trying to share that with me and to get some input from me on how he might solve his problem. And while I was listening to him out of my one ear, my eyeballs were focused on my computer screen as I was reading an email from somebody else. It was a moment of realization, and I thought I'm doing both of us a complete disservice. So I have now got a policy that when somebody walks into my office and demands my attention, I will momentarily stop what I am doing and focus 100% on that person. Remember this: the past is history, the future is a mystery, today is a gift. That's why they call it the present. The third technique is to get rid of clutter, because clutter equals stress. It wastes time. A cluttered office environment, a cluttered study area, a cluttered home for that matter, is going to cause you mental stress. It also wastes time because, for me in some cases, if I'm not organized, if I have clutter, I will spend a lot of time working for missing documents. I know it's in one of these piles on my desk, and instead of being able to just open a drawer and pull out a file in a matter of seconds, I will often spend 10, 15 minutes or longer looking through piles of paper to find the document that I was looking for. So avoid clutter and de-stress your life. Next is to set goals and priorities. You need to be diligent in setting daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annual goals. And again, you need to set them for three aspects of your life: your job, your family or your home life, as well as your academic life. Do you have a 3-year plan for your success? How about a 5-year plan? If not, why not? And finally, manage interruptions and confront obstacles. I worked with a coworker who did transcript evaluations, And when deadlines were approaching and she perhaps got behind or inundated with transcript evaluations, she needed to send a strong signal to the rest of the staff that she was not to be disturbed. So here's what she did. She put her phone on forward, and not having the luxury of an office with a door, she could not close her door, but she became very innovative. And we arrived at work one morning to find the entrance to her cubicle completely covered in the yellow police tape that said, crime scene, do not cross. It was a loud and clear message to the rest of the staff to leave Sarah alone and let her finish her transcript evaluations. So here are a few final tips for succeeding in graduate school. The first is to know thy syllabus. There should be no surprises. You should know when assignments are due, when papers are due, when projects are due, when your next test is coming up. You shouldn't arrive to class and find any surprises. The second is to stay on pace and to actually work ahead if possible. Falling behind is what I call the death blow in graduate school. Don't fall behind because you're an adult, and we often say as adults that life happens. There's work issues, family issues, child care issues, elder care issues that will pop up. Most things you probably didn't have to worry about during your undergraduate studies. So stay on pace, or better yet, try and work ahead if possible. The third tip is to utilize your lunch hour to study, and this is something I did diligently during my 3-year MBA program. I stopped going out to lunch, I brown bagged it, I saved some money, and if need be, I locked myself literally in a broom closet each of my lunch hours. That gave me an extra 5 hours a week in which to study. Communicate early and often with faculty. It's like voting in Cook County. Do it early and often. But seriously, if you know that you are going to be missing class due to a work trip or a family vacation, be in contact early. The faculty will often have workarounds. You also should communicate and become friends with your classmates who will be able to pass along to you notes that you may miss when you're missing class. And finally, let me share with you what I call the yellow-blue highlighter technique. Now, this doesn't work if you are using the new ebooks, but if you go old school and choose to either purchase, preferably purchase rather than rent, textbooks, the physical textbooks, this technique is something for you to try out. Purchase yellow and blue highlighters. When you are reading the material for the first time, have your yellow highlighter with you and highlight things in the chapters that you feel are important. When you arrive at class, have your blue highlighter with you. When the faculty member goes over things that are important, highlight those areas with the blue highlighter. And if you're an art major, you probably can quickly put together that blue and yellow equal green. So here's the bottom line. If you are pressed for time, trying to prepare for an exam, what are you going to focus on? The yellow, the blue, or the green? Of course, you're going to focus on the green highlighted areas because you thought it was important, and of course your faculty member thought it was important as well. Finally, assess results and modify as needed, and you too can achieve work-life balance and succeed in graduate school. Thank you again for joining me today for the webinar. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact us. Our phone number is 630-617-3300, or send us an email, sps@elmhurst.edu. Thanks again, and good luck in graduate school.